Is the EU really sabotaging peace? Thank you for joining us again here on another episode of Get Ready News. I'm Mark Lindsted. This is my brother David Lindsted, and we like to look at the news through the biblical lens.
Yeah, that's about the only way you can really look at stuff and find a truthful bar to set things to see where we are actually at in time.
Yeah, well, right into our catch. Is the European Union really trying to sabotage peace between Russia and Ukraine?
You know, it sure seems like it. I know Trump and his staff have been working diligently trying to get a peace deal with Ukraine. And we saw that when Trump was coming in office, everything looked very, very positive.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was going to be almost peace before he got in.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny to see this, though. Really, mankind is fascinated with war, I think.
I think so.
And we look at it from one aspect of control. People want control. But I think another aspect is the economic people realize that we get an economic boom every time we're at war.
Yep.
So it's control, it's money, it's chaos. Some just love the chaos.
You know, and we saw this when he first got into office. The Democrats met with Zelensky before he came to the Oval Office or to the White House to discuss this rare earth minerals deal. And they pretty much coaxed him into not being cooperative with Trump. And then Zelensky called for the media. That wasn't a Trump and Vance thing. That was the Zelensky that brought the media there. And then that whole fiasco ensued.
He got some, in my opinion, some bad advice from some very bad advisors. And it really looks to me like the Democrats, they talk from their mouth that they want peace, but their actions never seem to show that they really want to have peace. They want to have control.
Yes. And you know, one of the things I find interesting is, and I don't know if it's just limited to Democrats, but we're going to say Democrats for fun right now. Whatever they're telling you is bad and not to do, they're doing.
Yes.
So, you know, if they say, well, you're colluding with Russia, well, we'll find out that they were colluding with Russia.
Yeah.
And I think we're looking at the same thing. You know, we don't want war.
Yeah.
But yet they're a war machine.
Well, you know, I think that our government really likes us to be in the dark.
Yeah.
And I look back onto when I was a kid, you know, you should never eat eggs. They're bad for you. They're high cholesterol. They'll kill you. Then the next thing comes out, eggs are the best thing you can eat. It's a superfood. And then back to eggs are bad. And now eggs are good. And now they're expensive because we like to kill all the chickens.
Yeah, it was the Biden administration that killed off 100 million chickens or something like that. But it's amazing to how we kind of go off half-cocked all the time.
Yes.
Or is it a way of controlling information to control the public? That's the next word.
I think it's a mechanism of control. I think that they are pulling the puppet strings and working in the background to something different every time.
You know, and it makes me wonder, it seems like every time something major happens, and I'm always thinking of the Cloward-Piven strategy, where you drive things to the nth degree, and then there's a hard place where you stop, and then you pull back, but you never go back to where you started. So that's how you keep pushing things forward. You know, you look at what they're doing to our food supply, and it seems like we go crazy off the deep end, we come back, but our food is never really the same. It's like we have fake food, and every year it's getting more and more fake.
Well, and really, honestly, I think they're taking a page out of the art of the deal in a way. Because, you know, the art of the deal is, I want to sell my business for $50 million. I know you're interested, so I'm going to offer it to you for $100 million. And you're going to go, that's ridiculous. I'll give you 50. And you go, good, that's what I wanted anyway.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like push it to the where it can't withstand it anymore. And then you come back to what they really wanted it to be.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I look at in that instance is real food costs money.
Yes.
Fake food doesn't cost that much money. So you go to the grocery store and they say, you know, you shop on the outside ring.
Yeah.
And that's where most of the real food is. And then you get in the middle aisles And those things are manufactured processed food.
Yes.
And they're a fraction of the cost of other food. And it just makes you wonder, are they raising all these prices and causing all this problem to push you into the center to give you stuff that looks like food but really isn't food? And it's causing our country to be completely unhealthy.
It's ridiculous. And I'm really glad that Kennedy's in there because I think he is for the people's health.
Yes.
I really, truly believe that he is for health, conscious decisions, and making smart choices.
I would say he is a liberal, but he's the liberal that I used to think I knew liberals were. He has a soft spot for social politics.
Sure.
But on the other hand, he really does care about America, and he does care about American people. And I think, we look at all the stuff that's banned in Europe that we have in our food.
Yes.
And it amazes me that we have that in our food. And I always wanted America to be better than all the other countries,
Well, with the cheap food, maybe that was our way of becoming economically better.
And that could be.
Or seeming to have a better life than everybody else because we can afford all this stuff.
Right. But I also think that we come back to this thing, control.
Yeah.
And I think that applies controls to us. One of the things that the Kennedy's looking at is food stamps. Yeah. If we're going to give you food stamps, which we're fine with, you need to buy real food and not buy the fake stuff and feed your kids absolute garbage. My wife got something called WIC.
Yeah.
Women with Infant Children, and they give you all sorts of stuff to try to help.
Milk and cheese and formula.
And cereal. Cereal is the big thing. So there's good stuff on there, and then there's a whole line of bad stuff.
Well, I can tell you right now, I will never forget, this has been 5 or 6 years ago at least. I was in the grocery store line buying my very meager, $50 to $100 a week is what I spend on groceries because I don't eat a lot. And I'd never forget, the lady in front of me had, I want to say 6 or 8 cases of Mountain Dew. And she whipped out her food stamp card to pay for it.
Yep.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, here I am buying a 6-pack of Diet Coke because that's what I can afford. And somebody who doesn't have the means to feed their family is allowed to buy case after case after case of high fructose corn syrup, soda, sugar drinks for their family.
Yep.
And I don't understand that. Why are we not making them? It used to be that they could only buy uncooked food, I thought.
Yeah.
Like meats and vegetables and things of that nature.
Couldn't buy beer and sodas, and it was just real food, but it's changed over the years.
She even had Red Bull in there.
Oh, yeah, I believe it.
I beyond me why we're allowing that. But back to our subject.
Yeah, I think that comes back to control. Controlling the population. And I see this with war.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I see a control with war, and one of the things that I know we're going to get into is the Bible talks a lot about war.
Sure.
In the end times, and it, I always thought everybody wants peace. That's what everybody wants to be is peace. And what do we have now? The EU is undermining Trump and Putin.
Yeah. Well, I saw an article that said the EU vows to maintain sanctions on Russia no matter what happens.
Yep.
And so here we are already undercutting whatever plan that Trump and his administration are trying to help with Putin and stop. And I'm with Trump on this. When he said, I just want people to stop dying.
Yeah.
I wanted them to stop being killed over this.
Yeah, and I think a good thing to know is, what does that war really mean? Mm-hmm. Why was that war made? Because Russia could stomp Ukraine instantly into the ground. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got that much resource compared to Ukraine. But why did they not stomp them into the ground?
Well, part of that is a lot of money is funneling into Ukraine. Right
That's
now.
True.
And so not only do I believe, this is my own belief, that Biden and certain people's campaigns got kickbacks from all of that.
Yep.
But maybe Putin's getting a little bit of that money as well.
And I think that the other thing that we don't ever talk about is, what was Ukraine's government before all this happened?
Yeah, I don't even know.
It's not an American government.
It's not a republic. It's
not a republic.
Not a democracy.
No, it's a dictatorship. It's been an evil government.
Wow.
We've had so many things happen, like Joe Biden claiming, he withheld money until they got rid of one of their attorneys or something.
The prosecutor that was going after his son with Burisma.
So there's all sorts of stuff about Ukraine that makes you say, what's really going on here?
Yeah.
But as you were saying, the UK has gotten involved, and they're holding these sanctions against Russia, and Russia's not a good place. I'm not defending Putin at all.
Yeah.
But now I've got one that says France and UK lead the charge to strengthen Ukraine's army against Russia. Now, if we're trying to make peace, like Trump says, and we're trying to stop the killing, why is the UK and the French and all these people getting involved and now sending money and all sorts of stuff to the Ukraine's troops and saying, go get them?
Yeah. Well, and the worst part about it is that Ukraine's neighbors, the EU, I don't think they've sent near the amount of funds that America has.
Oh, no. Drop in a bucket compared to us. I think right after Trump, Zelensky fell through, they gave Zelensky $2 billion.
Alone.
Yeah,
alone.
And it was a loan. It wasn't even and we gave them, what, $350 billion?
And I think half of it, they don't even know where it went.
Yeah, exactly.
Just so we're clear on this, I want everyone to be very clear what $1 billion really is. I think they said if you had 1 million seconds, it's something like 11 or 12 days. If you have 1 billion seconds, it's 32 years.
Yeah.
That's the difference. That's the kind of money we're talking about. And I make light of this all the time, and the fact that America, we're like, oh, that's going to cost you $1 billion. So what? We lose $1 billion. We don't know where it goes every single day. And that's sad to really think about this. What kind of money is just poof in the wind?
And I think about that, and I think about what Dodge has claimed to have found.
Yeah.
And it's an immense amount of money, and it hadn't even made a dent in the surface of what's really going in with all this money.
I'm excited for Doge or Dodge or whatever they're going to call it to get these refund checks out.
Oh, I think they're talking that's not going to happen until 2026.
Oh, well, I need it now. The funny thing to me is all those who say they support Ukraine, they ought to be an option for them to send their check to Ukraine.
There you go. Support them with your own money.
I want to see how many people actually do it.
Yep. But this article says Trump's deal with Putin faces European reality check.
Yeah.
And Europe is claiming, well, the reason we're getting involved is because we don't want to see Ukraine carved up.
Yeah. Well, the words reality check there really, I think, say a lot. When we talk about what real truth is and what real reality is, what is the honest reality? I think about our current tariff battle with Canada.
Yeah.
The real reality is if America didn't do any business with Canada, they would be gone. We would buy them out of bankruptcy as the 51st state.
Yeah.
They wouldn't join of their own volition. It would be, okay, we're bankrupt. Yeah. I have to. And so what's the reality of the world if America went back to like we did, it was at 1945 when we went into kind of an isolationism where we said, we're just going to work on ourselves. What would happen to the rest of the globe economies?
Oh, yeah. We pump a lot of money, whether they're real dollars or not.
Yeah. We
pump a lot of money across the sea for other things that may or may not affect us, you know. Tariffs, a lot of people have come down and say, well, these tariffs are so evil. But yet we can see through these tariffs that now companies are bringing business into America.
Well, the article I read the other day said that Trump is projecting the amount of businesses moving back to the States as $4 trillion worth of business.
You know, the only way we're going to be able to get out of this situation is what we used to talk about when I was in retail, and you've got to sell yourself out.
Yeah.
So in other words, we can't possibly pay this bill, but we could make our income better to where we could possibly pay this bill.
Yeah.
So you've got to work on one side before you can work on the other.
Well, and here's what I'm for. Trump said that he's got a plan. Everyone making less than $150,000 to not pay any income tax through tariffs. I'm going to tell you right now, if you gave me the opportunity not to have income tax and to be taxed at the purchase of something, I can control what my taxation is by my consumption. And I'm all for that. I don't mind paying an extra $10,000 for my car if I didn't pay $20,000 to the federal government.
Yeah, and I think that if you look at it in this sense, you say, well, Dave, you pay about 25% of your gross goes straight to the government, and that's a very small number to the government.
Yeah.
So let's pretend like I make $100,000 for a number of reasons. Mm-hmm. So that means $25,000 the government takes.
Yeah.
Well, that's a drop in the bucket. They lose that in seconds. But that means a lot to somebody in my position.
Yeah.
$25,000 is the difference between owning a house and not.
Sure.
Putting food on the table, being able to afford to live, and I think Trump's spot on with this. Elon Musk, being the richest man, pays more taxes than I will ever in my lifetime in 1 year. Well, his tax rate may be 8%, but it's 8% of billions.
Billions upon billions.
It's just ludicrous.
I may be wrong, but I think somewhere I read that he's the single largest taxpayer.
It could be. I wouldn't be surprised.
And man, for someone to be in charge of spending, I want him in charge of spending because it's his money that's getting spent. Anyway, as we continue on this European Union thing, I mean, just ridiculous.
It's interesting. We were kind of chatting about this before. The Bible says once we know that the end times is coming. It's compared it to a fig tree.
Yeah.
As this tree is starting to put on leaves and buds, we know that spring is coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like when we see the things that Jesus described in Matthew 24, we know tribulation.
Yeah.
The 70th week of Daniel is coming.
Yeah. So it talks about the wars and rumors of wars and the nations against nations, but it also says kingdom against kingdom.
Yep. And I think what nation against nation would be is Ukraine against Russia.
Yeah.
America against Canada.
Yeah.
It's nation and nation. Israel against
everybody.
Everybody. There you go. But kingdom versus kingdom is inside strife. We would say civil war.
Yeah.
Internal fighting. And I can't think but to look at some of the stuff that's going on in America right now and say, is this kingdom versus kingdom? Just for instance, the stuff that's happening to Teslas.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
These people have been deemed as terrorists.
Yeah, and I agree.
I agree. And we have an internal struggle. There's actually a civil war going on between that right now.
Well, and this is, to me, this is evidence that the narrative that was pushed with EVs and environmental things is all a hoax. Because the same people that said if you don't buy a Tesla, you don't love the environment, are now burning Teslas to the ground.
Yep. And
since when is it ever appropriate? I don't like your opinion on something, so I'm going to go burn your stuff up.
I don't know, but that's not the way America was. America is supposed to be free speech.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be able to tell you I don't like something that you like.
Yeah.
And you say, we can still be friends. You don't like what I like.
So don't get in my Tesla.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't own a Tesla. I'm not that wealthy. But
I think we see this over and over again. Look at all the riots we had.
Yeah. Well, and it's not contained to those who are prone to this type of activity. I saw just the other day there was a man who had to remove his LinkedIn profile. He was a vice president of sales or a regional sales manager for some company, caught red-handed keying a Tesla. You're talking about somebody who makes a good amount of money, probably would be considered middle to upper class, and he's out keying cars?
Yeah.
What's going through the brain of somebody like that. It has to be an issue of the heart.
Yes, it does. I mean, and the next question is what good have you done?
Yeah.
How is this helping? How does keying a Tesla solve whatever problem is of Elon being hired by the United States to do a job?
And they're talking about, the Tesla stock is tanking. I'm telling you right now, Elon has so much money.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if Tesla even went under.
No, exactly.
And they're not doing any good except for giving work to those who would use carbon emissions to fix the vehicle you just torched or keyed or whatever you did. It's such an issue of the heart. And it always reminds me back in the Old Testament, it talks about what Dr. Lindsted, our uncle, he calls it the first heart transplant. He says, I'm going to remove from within you your stony heart.
Right.
And I'm going to give you a fleshly heart. I'm going to give you a fleshy heart. I'm going to give you one of sensitivity and true emotional care for your people. And it all stems to a heart problem.
Yeah.
And the reason why the wars and rumors of wars and nations against nation and kingdom against kingdom and pestilences, whether they're man-made or not, all this is coming about because of a heart issue.
Yes, and it says, as we get to the middle of the tribulation, it says, and the many will wax cold.
Yeah.
They will lose their love. They will be offended. They will betray each other. The end times is not going to be good. And you can see the I'm number one, I'm first attitude that's coming. Another thing I was thinking about as far as kingdom against kingdom would be the invasion of the United States with what we would say is for foreign illegal aliens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, we see a lot of battle going on there, but Europe has a problem.
They have a big problem.
They have a Muslim problem.
They're bringing in their kingdom versus kingdom.
Exactly. Right now, if you go into the UK, you can't say anything bad against Muhammad, against Muslims, but you can put Christians in jail for praying silently.
It really is. I mean, it's like the Bible says, woe to them that call evil good and good evil.
I think that we see nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom everywhere to a large scale.
I remember I did a sermon 3 or 4 months ago talking about some of these things, and I asked the question. I said, well, how many wars are going on right now? And people say, oh, they got Russia, Ukraine, and Israel with Syria or Iraq or Iran, or list these 4 or 5 things. And when you go to the internet and you search how many wars are there right now, at that time there was more than 110 armed conflicts.
Right. Things happening all over the globe.
It's not just a few things.
There's like 13 major contact.
Yeah.
But there is so much strife all over the earth right now, and killing happened like crazy all over the earth now. And I think about, we don't know what killing is going to be. We don't know what death is going to be until the first part of the tribulation.
Wow. Yeah.
How many is it that lose their life in the first?
Well, I think a quarter in the first or the second seal. Is it the second seal? And so that would be, if you figure rough numbers, 8 billion people on the planet, 2 billion people.
2 billion people.
2 billion people. I mean, we don't know what death really looks like right now.
Exactly. And we just, speaking of end times and things coming, one of the things the Bible talks about is earthquakes in various places. And we just had an absolute major earthquake there in Thailand, Myanmar area.
Yeah, it was in Myanmar, and it was felt all the way to Bangkok, and buildings were collapsing.
Yep.
And man, just some devastation there. And as we go back and we look at the heart issue, I look at my own heart. And I remember, early on, I had what I would call a Pharisaical heart, where, well, you're not a believer in Jesus, you probably deserve to go to hell. And man, when the Lord starts to work on your heart, when the Spirit starts to get you in the Word of God, and they remove that stony heart and they put the fleshy heart in there, and you start to have compassion for the lost, you start to understand, no, I know you deserve hell, but Jesus died for you too. And we've got to have that heart about. And why are we always talking about the end times? It's because we need to be about our Father's business. Our Father in heaven's business is to proclaim the gospel and bring as many to Him as possible.
My goal is to shout it from the rooftop, Jesus is coming again.
Yeah.
You know, I look at, it says in there, so as were the days of Noah, so are the days when the Son of Man shall come. And I think back, and you can say, well, look at all the evil that was in that time. Look at all this stuff that was happening, and it's happening here too. But I want you to know, Noah was a preacher of righteousness for how many? At least 120 years.
120 years.
And people said, is it going to rain? It's never going to rain. No, you don't need this boat. Judgment is not coming. And guess what? Judgment came.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen again.
Well, in 120 years of preaching, how many people were saved?
The only ones that started preaching to begin with.
8.
8
people were saved.
Yep.
So we really want to make sure it's not just 8. We're working diligently toward that. And I just pray that every one of us, and our listeners out there and ourselves, would have the compassion that Christ has on people, and to really understand that they're made in the image of God just as we are. Christ died for them just as much as He died for us. You know,
like you, I used to think, well, this person probably deserves hell. And then you start thinking about it and you think, it's forever.
Forever.
Now, it's hard for us to really grasp forever. And I've been in situations where I wanted it to be over now because it was terrible and it wouldn't go.
Yeah.
And then you get that final relief. And then you feel fantastic because that relief comes. Guess what's never, ever going to come?
Yeah.
Relief.
Never relief. Never to be reunited with God, with the Creator. Never with Christ. Never with your loved ones who have gone on. And believe me, it says biblically that you will recognize people in heaven. You'll know them. They'll know you. And man, what a hard time that's going to be. Here's another question to pose. It says in the end, Revelation, I think 21, where it talks about wiping away our tears. There'll be no sorrow. There'll be no death. So will we have complete understanding why those who didn't believe are gone and be okay with it? Or will He wipe them from our memory?
There's another passage that says that things of the old earth will not be remembered.
Okay.
And I think that all the way up until that point, through the millennial period, up until the great white throne, there is going to be sorrow that we didn't talk to everybody we should have talked to.
Yeah.
And I think after that, we will no longer remember and they will be forgotten. Of course, God won't forget them.
Well, thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next week.